The day after I revived approximately 700,000 Imperial soldiers and officers, we had our troops who played an active role in the defense of Tempest, lined up in rows across the coliseum. The rank-and-file soldiers had filled every available seat in the house. Today, we were holding a victory celebration. We were still at war with the Empire, technically, but we planned this as a necessary tool for boosting morale. Bacchus, dispatched from the Crusaders, and the overcomers serving Luminous were also in attendance. Jua had killed them, but fortunately, everything took place inside the labyrinth. They had all been properly revived, and they were kind enough to accept our apologies. It's our lack of experience, they told me, but you know this crime was committed on our land, after all. We could at least treat them well. Anyway, I'm just happy the damage was kept to a minimum. We had a deluxe feast planned for the second half of the celebration, so hopefully they'd indulge to their heart's content. We also had a few guests from abroad in the VIP seating. That included Alvis, who joined the defense, as well as Phobio and the Twin Wings who arrived after, elite troops in tow. Lady Milm is restless and worried, so Lady Free sent us to assist you. Yes, but I'm not sure she had anything to worry about. We were convinced you'd win all along, Sir Rimuru. Lucia, the blonde Twin Wing, and Claire, the silver-haired one, gave me their reassurance in the most sonorous of voices. I guess I made Milm worry for me, but the news of our victory ought to set her straight again. Our city was safe, thanks to Vildor and Ramers, and I was sure things would be pretty peaceful soon. I was sent over as a contact, Phobio told me. The magical calls weren't coming through anymore, so I was dispatched just in case. And also, no, pardon me. The way he put it, he would go back at once and bring reinforcements if things were looking bleak for us. As the fastest member of their group, Phobio was selected for the job, based on the possibility that magic wouldn't be an option due to magical disruption. He was about to say something after that but stopped mid-sentence. The way he was looking at Alvis bothered me, but I decided to ignore it. I figured it was already finished business. I thanked the three of them and showed them to their box seats. After that, there was another group guests from Dworgen. I saw Jane there, Archwizard of the Dworgen Royal Court. Dulf, captain of the Pegasus Knights, was serving as her bodyguard. Jane, for the most part, used me as her personal complaint board. No forbidden spell casting in the Forest of Jur, she told me, but she was even angrier about me having primal demons under my wing. To be honest, I did have my regrets about that, but what could I do now? They just kinda showed up when I wasn't paying attention. They called it a force majeure in insurance contracts, don't they? No, it's not merely a force majeure. I've lived for quite a long time, I'll have you know, but I've never been so shocked and dismayed in my entire life. I'm sorry. I had no choice but to apologize. I appeased her as best I could, explained my side of the story, and after enough cajoling, she seemed to be a bit more satisfied. It would have been nice if Jane could have left like that, but we needed to have a meeting to discuss the future. In fact, that seemed to be the purpose of her visit. 60,000 troops were still deployed in front of Dworgen's eastern city, all under Yuki's command. I told her that I had a tentative war alliance with Yuki, and that was why war hadn't broken out over there. Tensions were still running high, though, so we couldn't leave things like this. Basically, I wanted to discuss matters with Yuki and figure out a future course of action. We'd released the captured Lapis, entrusting him with a message from me, and now we were just waiting for Yuki to contact us. So I took Jane and Dulf to the VIP seats as well, inviting them to celebrate our victory with us. It was thus an international audience watching the proceedings that day in the Coliseum. I was seated on a chair placed atop a raised podium, in slime form. Behind me were Rigord and Rigor, the rest of our civil servants lined up behind them on both sides. Among the columns below me were the 10 dungeon marvels, people who normally wouldn't be seen in public. They were the stars of the day, though, so their presence was perfectly natural. Showing off the labyrinth bosses to the world normally wouldn't be a great idea, but today, at least, it was fine there were no civilians in the audience, after all, or adventurers from our volunteer army. The first one to speak was Shuna, who was standing next to me. She gave a long, impassioned speech, explicitly stating beforehand that these were my words. It was a great performance, but I didn't write any of it, that was all Shuna. In a way, she's a much more effective secretary than either of my actual ones. I'm terrible with this speech stuff, and she's been a huge help on that front. Xian's not really suited for public speaking, and I'd be anxious leaving that job to Diablo. He'd just talk about how great I was from start to finish. As I internally thanked Shuna for her presence, I thought over our next steps. During this event, I wanted to announce our achievements and, as I did, give out rewards to my people. In other words, I was going to try awakening, or whatever it turned out to be, my staff. According to Raphael, granting someone 100,000 souls would awaken and evolve them, granting them strength equivalent to a true demon lord. Only those qualified would be eligible for this, but much to my surprise, 12 total candidates fit the bill. Renga, Benimaru, Xian, Gabel, Geld, Diablo, Testarossa, Ultima, Carrera, Kumara, Zijin, and Adalman. Only those connected enough with me on the soul level to obtain a demon lord seat were allowed. That was the condition. The one who piqued my interest the most is undoubtedly Adalman. He's the only one I didn't name myself. Why does he have the right to an evolution? Understood. The subject Adalman's faith in you has surpassed the level required to establish a firm connection with you. Oh, right. I taught Adalman the secret skills of faith and favor I learned from Luminous, didn't I? Thanks to that, we've built a connection that rivals the kind we'd have after a naming. That's just amazing. It's like he qualified for it all on his own, thanks to the unbelievable amount of faith he possessed. It's a little awkward how all that faith was aimed at me, but I have to admire him for it. So that makes sense. But the next question was, how many of these people can be evolved? Based on a quick count, I had a little over 1 million souls stored inside me. That didn't quite match the number of people who died, but Raphael explained the reason why. Proposal. The obtained souls were found to have a range of individual variances. Do you want to redistribute and reconstruct them to be uniform? Yes. No. I thought yes without really understanding, and the next thing I knew, the total number ballooned to just over 1 million. The resurrected Imperial soldiers would have a small amount of energy returned to them, so I'd figured the number would shrink a bit, but it actually grew instead. Some of them, like Caligulio, had been awakened themselves, and a lot of other really strong dudes stormed the labyrinth as well. People like that had much more energy than usual, and although I was technically borrowing it, I also took a ton of energy from Juwu and Bernie, what with the ultimate skills they had and all. Each one of them had the energy of between several dozen and several tens of thousands of souls in their bodies. So between this, that, and the other thing, I had enough souls to awaken 10 people. But I had a few points of concern for this experiment. The first was word of this leaking out. Was it really safe to do something so show-offy in front of guests like Alvis and Jane? But I decided to trust them on this regardless, not because we were all part of an alliance, but because I knew they'd find out anyway. It was utterly impossible to fool Milim, and King Gazel had already put his trust in me with Diablo. Jane was already pissed off enough at me, so it was kinda too late to keep her from learning about the Labyrinth gang. I was sure the Labyrinth running community would start spreading rumors about how unnaturally strong the bosses had gotten before long anyway. No point, I thought, in concealing anything from anyone in this coliseum. Next up was the uncertainty factor. This was the first time I had ever tried an awakening on someone else. There was always a chance something unexpected would occur. Thus, harnessing Rammus's powers, I had the entire coliseum blocked off from the rest of the city. That should prevent any damage from spreading to the outside world, no matter what happens, and it'd also maintain confidentiality, so we'd really be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. The last concern of mine was the harvest festival that'd likely occur to each target, much like the one triggered by my Demon Lord awakening. In my case, it put me in a catatonic state for 3 days straight. If something similar happened to them, it'd mean the majority of our main leadership would take a days-long nap in the middle of a war. They'd be totally off the grid for a few days, and if something went haywire, it'd certainly suck for us. But despite stewing over it for a while, I decided this wouldn't be a big problem, either. There was 0 Imperial army left, nobody in the armored division, according to what Caligulio and his officers told us, that could mobilize at a moment's notice. We did just kill 940,000 of their soldiers and officers, after all, so I kinda doubted there'd be anyone left. The Empire had nothing but their magical beast and composite divisions to wage war with. We had an alliance, more or less, with Yuki's composite division, and right now the magical beast division was being transported in a wholly different direction by the Flying Combat Corps, the pride and joy of the armored division. My Eye of God skill was more than enough to keep track of those airships, and we calculated that even if they suddenly changed direction, it'd still take more than 3 days to reach our country. They had a normal cruising speed of around 250 miles an hour. They could allegedly break the sound barrier at maximum combat speed, but only for a short period of time, due to the comical amounts of magic force it consumed. We weren't even sure they could stay in the air for the long stretches of time it'd require without resupplying. These airships ran incomparably faster than ships or trains, but being in the air brings its own threats. You may run into surprise turbulence or points where the magicules are too disturbed to access magic at all. Some areas were also home to monsters who patrolled the skies, so the safest route wasn't necessarily the straightest one every time. The fact that supersonic flight was possible in this world at all was a huge threat, but perhaps it wasn't as advantageous as you might think. I didn't see much need for alarm there. That just left the possibility that the Imperial Guardians would go on the move. We whipped their asses this time, but only because we had the advantage of fighting on our home turf in the labyrinth. We could revive anyone who died in battle, which let us handle any situation with the utmost calmness. If I was fighting the Guardians, I figured I could find a way to win. So would Benimaru, probably, at the end of the day. But what about Shiona? Wouldn't it be pretty iffy for Gabler Geld? If so, we'd need to address that as soon as possible. That way, even if they unexpectedly encountered a powerful enemy, they'd at least be able to bide the rest of us some time. We all had soul connections in the form of soul corridors, to be exact, so they had a solid link with me still. No matter the situation, we'd always be able to thought communicate with each other. They could contact me as soon as they made an encounter, and then we could stage a pincer attack to kill off the threat. Either way, I wanted to awaken everyone immediately, in preparation for what was to come. Every possibility, I thought, needed to be addressed. And this was the best time possible to do it.